I'm Jennifer Griffin, National Security Correspondent for the Fox News Channel, and I welcome you to our discussion on the Wounded Warrior Experience, presented by Military Order of the Purple Heart Service Foundation. The program is produced by the American Veterans Center and spotlights the experiences of several extraordinary Americans. We will discuss their injuries, their recovery process, and resources available to all wounded veterans. We begin tonight's program with a discussion on the Wounded Warrior Experience, their injuries, their reactions, and their recoveries. Our first panel consists of former Navy officer Bradley SNYDER, blinded by an explosion in Afghanistan. He is now a Paralympian holding the world record in the 400-meter and 100-meter freestyle among fully blind swimmers. Sergeant Mary HERRERA, U.S. Army veteran, wounded while serving as the automatic weapon gunner for the lead vehicle in her platoon near Fallujah, Iraq. Guy Haskins, United States Marine Corps, veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom, serving with the 1st Battalion, 8th Marines in the Battle of Fallujah in 2004, and representing Military Order of the Purple Heart Service Foundation, retired Air Force officer Ernesto Hernandez, who was wounded in 2008 when he used his own body to shield the occupants of an open bunker from indirect enemy fire. Welcome, everyone. Bradley, let's start with you. You have an extraordinary story. You were an EOD specialist. You were an explosive ordnance disposal unit in Afghanistan when you stepped on an IED. It was September 2011. You had been swim team captain at the Naval Academy. Tell us about the day that you were injured.
Yes, ma'am. I was part of an assault team that was looking to find Taliban fighters, Taliban weapons, Taliban intelligence in the Kandahar area of Afghanistan, and we were on a foot patrol, and at the time, because of the prevalent threat of IEDs in the ground, it would have been my job as the EOD guy to clear with a metal detector for IEDs out in front of our patrol. I had actually turned over the reins to another EOD technician up at the front of the patrol, and we saw a blast that went off, injured really badly 2 of the Afghan commandos we were working with. In the ensuing effort to render aid to those commandos, I stepped on a secondary device that was located closely to the first device. Yeah, I remember everything up to the blast. I remember being on the ground. I actually thought that I had died because out of the remnant vision I had in my left eye, I could see down to my hands and my legs and didn't see any blood or any damage or anything, and actually thought that I had passed over and was in some sort of purgatory waiting to die. But was obviously immensely relieved, but also very scared when I realized I was still alive and I could feel kind of the damage to my face. I could feel my vision fading. I could hear my tinnitus in my right ear, and then my buddies calling to me, and realized I need to get out of here and get to help. So it was pretty scary at that particular moment, but was able to kind of start that rehab process almost right off the bat.
What do you remember when you woke up in the hospital bed? What was the first thing you remembered, and what was your darkest moment?
It was very confusing for me when I woke up in Walter Reed. It's very scary, disorienting. My perception of the world was much like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, like purples and greens, and I kept asking my mom about the bunny at the end of my bed, and she's like, "There's no bunny at the end of your bed." So it was, it took a few days to really kind of grasp what was going on. But I remember I was really terrified of this fact that I came back all wounded and messed up, and I didn't want my sister to have to see me in that bed. But it was immensely, empowering to me for my family to wrap up around me the way they did and kind of prop me up and move me forward. Very early on, we had rejected the notion that I was a victim. I put myself in that particular situation, and so we decided that we were going to rehab really quickly, and everyone kept saying, "These dark days are coming, these dark days are coming," and I'm like, "No, I'm an optimist. I can fight through anything. Sunshine soldier," or whatever. And I remember the first time I woke up alone in the hospital was really tough for me, because when I dream as though I can see. And I see my hands, and I see my legs, and I see my dog, and I see my mom. And I even see my blind cane sometimes in my dreams and wonder, why am I using this cane? I can see just fine. I remember that first time waking up in the darkness and thinking, I don't want to have to do this for the rest of my life. This is difficult, and I don't want to have to be reminded every day, I'm blind. So I remember calling my mom that day, and my mom said, she says, "What's wrong?" I said, "Well, I don't want to wake up blind every day for the rest of my life." And she said, "Well, you're looking at it the wrong way." She said, "Instead of dreading every day where you lose your vision, you have to look forward to the end of every day when you go to sleep and wake up, and or go to sleep and you have your dreams and you can see again." And it was a very powerful way of just saying, that's how we really moved through that entire process. There's always a way to reframe your perspective. There's always a way to find the silver lining. like I had said a couple days before, I had actually thought I was dead. And so to be able to come back and be able to do the things that I can still do is really, in a lot of ways, like a lot of examples of fortune versus misfortune.
Well, here's what people don't realize about you, Brad, is that you are a Paralympian. But what's interesting is exactly 1 year to the day after your injury, you won a gold medal in the men's 400-meter freestyle in London, 2012 at the Paralympics.
That's right.
That's extraordinary. How did you do that?
With everybody in that environment, my family, the rehab folks, everyone looking at me to see how am I going to take this blow, I thought, you know, I'm a leader. Like I've been an officer for the last 7 years. Like I take my leadership role seriously. I want to show everyone that I'm rejecting this notion of the victim idea. I'm not a victim. I am, you know, there are some circumstances I need to deal with. I'm going to accept those circumstances and I'm going to move forward. The pool just kind of emerged as a way for me to send that message. And I started relatively early. I was lucky in that most of the damage I incurred was onto my face. Physically, I was pretty much fine. So once the sutures healed, I was able to start swimming and running. And Max will tell you I threw a shot put and all that kind of stuff. That didn't go all that well, but not as well as Max. But they got me into a pool, and it was really largely successful right off the bat. And I feel really fortunate that things lined up that way. And there's so much kind of crazy serendipity in the way things lined up that year. But the real benefit for everyone is, I was able to show that you can throw away that victim mentality, and you can make a very conscious decision that you are going to move forward and you are going to succeed and you are going to accept the circumstances within you find yourself, and you are going to succeed regardless. Everybody has the same amount of opportunity to do that if we can just do the right things. We reframe our perspective and we make that very conscious decision that no matter what the circumstances within which we find ourselves, we're going to decide to move forward and be successful.
And right now you have the world record in the 400-meter and the 100-meter freestyle for fully blinded swimmers. You are planning to go to Rio, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
You're training for Rio, the Paralympics in Rio, and you were voted by the U.S. Olympic team to be the flag bearer at the closing ceremony in London.
Yes, ma'am.
Mary, I want to turn to you. You, in 2003, were a gunner in a lead vehicle moving from Ramadi to Fallujah. Whoever said women are not in combat, by the way. And you were with the Arizona National Guard. You were ambushed. RPGs hit your vehicle. Your arm was shot twice by an AK-47. Tell us what happened that day, your alive day.
Well, we were driving back to Ramadi from Fallujah. We were coming up on the bridge, up onto a bridge, and there was a couple spotters on the bridge. So since I was the lead vehicle, my eyes were on before everybody else. So I called into my radio that, you know, to get ready, because at that point we knew that if you're coming up on a bridge and there's two spotters on the bridge, you're going to get hit. So by the time, you know, I turned away for a second to call into my radio, we were already being hit with small arms fire, and a couple IEDs had gone off. And I was suppressing fire with the saw, actually, and I felt like I got hit with a prick on my upper shoulder, and I thought it might have been a piece of debris, a rock or something. I was still able to continue to suppress fire, and then I felt my arm fall to my lap, and I won't say what I said, but it was colorful, as we speak in the military. But I thought I had lost my arm because it was an instant that I was firing and then it was gone.
Your commanding general said you're the bravest person he knows. Would you do it again?
In a heartbeat. Even with my injuries, you know, if I could have stayed in the military, I would have done it.
And there's a bill that was passed in Arizona that's named after you. Tell us about that.
Well, I had nothing to do with that in the first place. Although I like to take the credit for it, but no.
It's a pretty big honor.
It is. When I was injured, that I went on my first convalescent leave from Brooke Army Medical Center home, the National Guard Command did a home visit. They went to go visit me and talk to my parents, and I was in college at the time, and they asked me who was paying for college, and I said, well, you're looking at them, my parents. And they said, you're not using your GI Bill? And I said, no, I didn't sign to get it. I didn't know anything about it, so. And then I explained to them that I didn't join the military to get something out of it. You know, I wanted to give something back to the country. So they went back to Phoenix, and they were sitting in a meeting with McCain, And it came out that here I was, you know, going to college. My parents were paying for it. I'd gotten injured. I was planning to go back to college to finish up. And they decided to make something to where if you've been injured in war, that you receive a Purple Heart, or if you're a first responder and you were injured or killed, the state of Arizona will pay for your school 100%. So, and they affectionately named it the Mary Herrera Bell.
That's beautiful.
And I didn't know about it till a couple years later.
You'd like to talk about the red stripe on the flag. What was it that you'd like to say about that?
I think I can speak for anybody that's served overseas, and especially if you've gotten injured. You begin this relationship with the country and with their flag that you really didn't have before. You understand the sacrifice that it takes for us to have what we have, and you know, it's amazing that you can look at the flag, and we all know what the, you know, everything stands for on the flag. We learned that in elementary school, and to sit there and realize that you've added red to that red, white, and blue. I mean, it's incredible. It's an incredible feeling to know that, you know, you have such an intimate relationship with it.
Mm. And tell us about Salute America's Heroes.
I work now with the Coalition to Salute America's Heroes. It's been a blessing to have the opportunity to continue working with wounded troops. It's actually been my therapy, but we help out severely injured troops with emergency financial aid. You know, when homes are going into foreclosure or cars are getting repossessed, we come in and we help with that buffer until their VA benefits kick in.
Great. Guy, you were in the Marine Corps. You grew up in Maryland. You were serving in the Battle of Fallujah. You were in the Marines from 2001 to 2005. And now you are testing equipment, the personal protective equipment, PPEs, for Marines. Tell us, though, take us back to the Battle of Fallujah and your injury.
My injury actually happened before Fallujah. It was actually in Haditha. We was with a program called Combined Action Program. We didn't live in a firm base or a forward operating base. We were our own base itself. So I was actually just came back from the gym, and I'm down in my PT gear, and I'm looking at Haney from across from me, and we're talking, getting ready to go to sleep, you know, take our 8 hours and get back on shift. And the next thing I know, I just heard the boom, and the guy that I was actually sitting across from, he was a pretty big Marine. So he said, when the explosion went off, he just rocked. But he said he looked up and said, "Where the heck is Haskins?" And I was, you know, on the ground, and when I got up, it seemed like blood squirting. Oh. But I looked down, it's a hole in my shoulder. And I looked down, it's another hole, and then this arm starts squirting. So I'm kind of sitting there like, what is happening? I just remember Sergeant Van Sickle screaming, "Get away from the windows," but had like a distorted voice, you know, and I'm just kind of looking at him like, what happened? There's blood everywhere. And then it just, out of nowhere, just like, back to reality. And it was just, hey, well, I can't say this, but I checked, you know, checked down to make sure everything was good there, and checked my face, and I remember grabbing Mercedes, and I had a Marine named Mercedes, I remember grabbing Mercedes, and the look on his face is like, "Man, you're bleeding from everywhere." And I'm just like, "Hey, is my face messed up?" He's like, "You got a little bit of scratches, but you're good." I said, "Hey, get your rifle, you know where you need to be." And I turned to look at another Marine, Hamilton, and his face is just mangled, you know. And I don't know, he just grabbed his rifle and we went to the roof and started engaging as much talk as we want to. I can just remember being on the radio, they wouldn't land the birds, you know. So we had to wait for a MAP platoon literally to come in, pick us up, and take us back. The amazing part was to see Marines injured and wounded and still do that job.
And
that's the most amazing part.
So you were shot in multiple places, and you still...
It was just from the strap.
But you took your weapon and suppressed fire.
Right, we went to the top, and I just remember platoon commander saying, "Yeah, let's get him back downstairs. Let's get him back downstairs, you know, and get him patched up." And we had amazing corpsman, Doc Sutton, one of the most amazing men I've ever had the pleasure of meeting in my life. And you should just see him trying to stop the bleeding on multiple Marines. You know.
So, Guy, how did you recover? And what's still hard for you?
I never left Iraq. I went from there straight into Fallujah, actually with guards and everything. I mean, making mock buildings of how we're going to go door to door. And I healed in country. And the best part was my dark days didn't come to after I left. You know, I was still amongst Marine soldiers and sailors, so it was okay. You know, it was okay.
So what about when you left?
The dark days came when there was no more uniforms around, it was just me. You know, there's still a lot of dark days. I still have dark days, but you take it one day at a time. But what helped me too was one, the Wounded Warrior Regiment, and once I left theater, I came back and worked for the Marine Corps. So now, you know, before a Marine now goes into combat, he has to see me. We do all the training for his personal protective equipment. I mean, as we all know, this is not your grandfather's flak anymore, or helmets are much more advanced, boots are much more advanced. I mean, the Marine Corps new pack is much more advanced, you know, than what we had from 01 to 05, you know, so now a Marine must see me, and it's mandated that he has to be trained before he can go, so he can understand the form, fit, and function, and the capability, and the threshold of his gear. And to let him know that we're sending you downrange with the best gear possible. You know?
So that helps you heal?
Yes, that helps me heal.
Okay, thanks, Guy. Ernesto, you're the only Air Force representative here.
There's a lot of people in this audience probably wondering why, huh? There you go.
So March 26, 2008, you are in Iraq. You use your own body to shield the occupants of an open bunker from indirect fire. It was on FOB Phoenix. Tell us about that day.
It's going to take me a second to get there. The reason being is this is the first time ever that I will even discuss it live. I did it because of the foundation asked me, and I believe in the foundation and military of the Purple Heart. Let me explain who I am first real quick, and then I'll get into it. My name is Ernesto Hernandez, Air Force Academy grad. Had some amazing jobs, as my boss says, very exotic. I was detailed at the Department of State when I was asked if I would volunteer to go to Iraq to help build the Iraqi army. Been deployed numerous times before that day, numerous times to Iraq and other places, hot spots, been shot at several times. Always walked away unscathed. Everyone thought I was the luckiest guy. And at the academies, they teach you, or any institution that gears you up for the professional war teaches you service before self. And there was a lot of metal falling from the sky. Every day I would lose a friend or a neighbor, bunkmate, or somebody you see every day in the chow hall. They just happen, and next thing you know, they're dead. March was a very difficult time during that time frame in FOB Phoenix. And there was a tent set up. It was unsheltered, I mean, unhardened, excuse me, tent. And we started getting shelled at 5:45 in the morning. And we heard screamings and people bleeding, and we started just grabbing bodies, throwing them in the bunker. And, you know, I have kids and wife, and at that time you forget everything. You remember about this service before self. We started throwing people in the bunker. Bodies everywhere, throwing them in, and the last thing I could use was myself as a shield. And there was another person with me by the name of Pete Raymond. He stood there next to me. We both got brunt of it, took a lot of shrapnel. He went to the other side of the bunker, and we stayed there until the end. And then, but as you were saying, my wounds really start to later. He went direct to the CASH, Combat Support Hospital, and he was treated. He was bleeding, his ruptured ears, he had shrapnel all over his body. I refused to go. I'm a type A personality, alpha male. I didn't want to go. First thing I did was jump in a shower, clean myself, ran to a Navy corpsman, so you're not going to say anything, just patch me as best as you can. And then came back, hid my wounds. They didn't tell anybody. I didn't get my Purple Heart until many years later because I didn't want to tell the story. I didn't want to believe it. Because the thing that I would share now is, as many of the people in this room, especially us that served, you know, we've been on that couch, been upset. There's been holes in my walls, just angry at the world. And then one day, you know, the spouse said, "You need to get some help." Got that VA form, looked in the bag. I saw some other VSOs that I'm very familiar with, and many of us have seen on TV. But I saw this Purple Heart thing. I said, "Let me give him a call." Gave him a call, right on top of it. Next thing you know, it was like just cyclical. I got some help. Then I saw an ad come out, an email ad that said, hey, we're looking for a national ad agent, we're going to interview somebody. And did the interview. Didn't think I had a chance just because I saw the era. It was the Vietnam getting ready to transition, but I don't think they were quite ready yet. Did my interview. It's changed my life. So everybody that's here in this room, that if you do have a Purple Heart, or even if you don't, if you know somebody needs help, we're here to help. Military Order of the Purple Heart. We're a unique organization. I said we don't want to really belong to it, but all of us that sit here know that organization. But we're here to support and serve all veterans through the research and development research that we do, through TBI and PTS, through the service dogs, as Equestrian. We do a lot. I want to say thank you for all three. It's kind of glad I went last because it makes it a little bit easier to share your story. Yeah, every day is a hard day, but a day I enjoy my job. As the foundation stated, there's 40,000 plus members, and we're growing. It's not a number we want to see increase too much, but it makes it worth it when I sit down with my Q-mate up there, Frank Van Hoy, my boss up there, Pushkar. We all have a story, and it makes it a little bit easier, but we know we're doing something to help somebody out. Just like you see that big Purple Heart back there, we're here to help.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for sharing your stories today. You're going to help a lot of people. When we return, we will discuss the unseen wounds experienced by many service members and the resources available to them. More from the Wounded Warrior Experience coming up. But first, a special video message from Ernesto Hernandez on behalf of our presenting sponsor, Military Order of the Purple Heart Service Foundation.
Hello, my name is Ernesto P. Hernandez III, retired OEF, OAF combat officer, Purple Heart recipient, and National Adjutant of the Military Order of the Purple Heart. For over 50 years, the Purple Heart Foundation has been honoring our nation's veterans so that their sacrifices will never be forgotten. Our services to assist veterans filing VA claims have helped thousands of veterans receive millions in benefits. And our proud partnership with the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund to help construct the National Intrepid Center of Excellence building at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. This will ensure that veterans suffering with post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury, or suicidal thoughts will get the help and assistance they need in the years to come. If you or someone you know is suffering from post-traumatic stress, the Purple Heart Foundation is here to help. We offer a free book which you can order on our website. It is a generous support of patriotic Americans like you that make this possible, and we couldn't have done it without your help. To find out more about the book or to pledge your support, please go to purpleheartfoundation.org. That's purpleheartfoundation.org. Thank you.
The Wounded Warrior Experience is presented by Military Order of the Purple Heart Service Foundation, with additional support from the Coalition to Salute America's Heroes and Veterans United Home Loans.
Welcome back to the Wounded Warrior Experience, presented by Military Order of the Purple Heart Service Foundation. In this segment, we will be discussing the unseen wounds that have plagued many veterans of our recent conflicts, post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injuries. We will also discuss the plague of homelessness among our veterans and one woman's determination to do something about it. Joining us for this very important segment are Rick KOLBERG, U.S. Army Sergeant First Class and veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom, and Major Jaspin Booth, United States Army Reserve and founder of Final Salute, a nonprofit dedicated to serving homeless and underserved women veterans and their children. Thank you both for joining us. Sergeant First Class KOLBERG, Rick.
Yes, ma'am.
You are still on active duty.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're still up at Walter Reed.
Yes, ma'am.
You served 11 years in the Army, 4 deployments, 3
Yes,
to
ma'am.
Iraq, 1 to Afghanistan. Your PTS was diagnosed in 2007.
Yes, ma'am.
How did you know you had post-traumatic stress?
June 3rd, 2007, I watched my very best friend in the Army get blown in half and burned to death. And 3-hour engagement, firefights, stuff like that. And, you know, after that, it seemed like he was the gel that had held everybody together in platoon. And after about 3 days of not sleeping, after 3 days of just, just sorrowful, I remember I'd come back off of a mission, routine stuff like 3 or 4 hours out in sector, and I went to go, kind of decompress, and I sat down, and I was using the bathroom, and I don't know how long I was in there, but I was in there long enough for my soldiers to come and knock on the door and ask me, "Where have you been?" I had been, what I now know is I was in a panic attack, and I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. I could think, "Get out of this, get out of this, get out of this. What is wrong with you? You're a warfighter, get out of this." But I couldn't move. My body was not functioning.
This was at the beginning of the surge around that time?
Yes, ma'am. That was my 15-month deployment. At the time I was married, had a new kid. My oldest son, Ethan, was born during that deployment. A lot of stress. And, the day-to-day, mortar attacks and IEDs and firefights and pot shots, and it was just a lot of stress. So when I noticed it, I went to get help. Talked to Doc Cole. He was very understanding. And when I got home, it got even worse. I was drinking every night, and still having the paralytic panic attacks, and that still continues to this day. And I've been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress in 2007, and I've been in therapy since then. I've done all kinds of therapy. But I'll tell you, I was injured in non-combat circumstances. I'm a patient at Walter Reed.
So this is your TBI that you're
Yes,
talking
ma'am.
about now. And what happened there?
I fell off a building in Germany. Broke both of my legs, both tib, fib, and both legs. Broke my back, smashed my head up. I don't know how far I slid. I woke up in a hospital in Germany, and both of my legs were in bandages, and one of them had this big cage on it. And it's similar to to the other story. Like, you wake up and you're on this pain medication, and what do I do now? Got to Walter Reed, diagnosed with traumatic brain injury, diagnosed with Graves' disease, something I didn't know I had. It's an autoimmune disorder that affects your metabolism, cognitive stuff. So a lot of stuff happened right then. So once again, I'm facing these insurmountable stressors. And for a guy like me, my task and purpose was gone. All of the panelists will tell you that whenever you're injured, you're wounded, whatever it is, and you serve in a leadership position, your task and purpose gets taken, you're done. Like, you're all of those things that you've trained for, you've strove for, and you lean on your brothers, and they're gone in a day.
Now, what has helped you get over some of the PTS, and what advice do you have for people?
Two things. One, I'm a National Veteran Suicide Prevention Advocate for an organization called 22 Kill. I'm also a team member of an organization called Operation Enduring Warrior. Two completely different missions, same purpose, enriching the lives of veterans. 22 Kill is kind of a grassroots thing. They're under an umbrella of Honor, Courage, Commitment organization. And just kind of a group of people that are like-minded, want to help veterans get out of the slump. I've been suicidal. I've dealt with the demon, so I have kind of a first-hand knowledge for that. When I first was able to start walking, I reached out to an organization, Operation Enduring Warrior, and they are activity-based, so adrenaline junkie to the military level. So they brought me in as an adaptive athlete because I have some adaptations. I can't run. I still have lots of metal in my legs, so I can't run. And they brought me out to a Spartan race. They said, "Come out, do this with us. You can run it." Okay. Sure, I'm coming out of a wheelchair. I haven't walked in 10 months. Let's go, guys. Here we go. So they want me to run this Spartan race with them. I do it, and life changed immediately. Their mission statement is honor, empower, and motivate. And every bit of that was felt. We had over 200 participants. There were 10 people similar to me, injuries, wounds, hidden wounds, stuff like that. We had a Vietnam veteran that was, at the end of the race, he grabs everybody, each of the team members, and he's crying and he can't control himself, and thank you, I'm finally home. That's the kind of organization that I'm talking about. So I feel that daily with this organization. I'm part of the team, and I'm actually endeavoring to be part of their mass athlete team now, and it's exactly what a veteran needs. I briefly said my task and purpose was gone, right?
So now you have it.
I have that definitive daily task and purpose.
Excellent. Awesome. So. Jazz, in 2005, you were preparing to deploy to Iraq. Your home was hit by Hurricane Katrina, and a month later you were diagnosed with an aggressive cancer in your head, neck, and throat. Tell me, how did you get through this?
I didn't feel well during my training, but you have so much training that's going on in that short period of time, and as a leader, you don't want to be without your troops. So I just, military way, sucked it up and drove on. And then when Katrina hit, they actually gave us 2 weeks to go home and salvage our goods. I didn't have anything to salvage, so my commander's like, well, now you got some downtime. Why don't you go to the hospital and check yourself out? And so I went over to the hospital, and the doctor there, he's a colonel. He's like, Lieutenant, sit down so I can talk to you. And I'm like, no, sir, I got things to do. Just let me know I'm good and I'll be on my way. And so he says, that wasn't a request. You know, Colonel, Lieutenant, I take a seat, obviously. And so he tells me that my test results didn't come back favorable. He told me that I wasn't going to be able to deploy with my troops. He wasn't really sure about my military career or my health. And I said, well, sir, what's wrong? He says, you have cancer. And so I told him, no, I don't. And I started to tell him all the reasons why it was like the worst time ever for me to have cancer. You know, I'm a single mom. I'm going to Iraq. You know, ain't nobody got time for that, you know.
Nobody has time for cancer, I can tell you that.
And so I'm just basically rambling because I'm in shock mode. And so after I was able to get my wits together, I got sent down to Brooke Army Medical Center. I spent 6 months there. I had 2 surgeries, 30 cycles of radiation. And the whole time I was there, I was very angry. I was mean to the hospital staff. I was in disbelief that I was going through these things. And one day I locked myself out of my room and I went to the front desk to get a key. And as I was standing there waiting for them to reprogram the key card, I saw a bunch of my wounded brothers and sisters being wheeled in. You know, some had limbs missing, multiple limbs. Some had been burned unrecognizably, and some you can tell had some type of traumatic brain injury. And so as I got my key, I went back to my room and I looked in the mirror and I said, you know what, this is your last day complaining, because any one of them would trade places with you just to be able to recognize themselves whole in the mirror. And so that just gave me a different perspective that, you know, yeah, I have cancer, I have internal injuries, but, you know, it could be a lot worse. And so I just focused on my healing, and my cancer did get in remission. And so that wasn't the hard part. After I was basically given a clean bill of health, so back in 2005, we don't have like the good warrior transition units that we have now. We had medical hold. So it was like, treat you and bye. It didn't have a whole lot of beyond that. But it's definitely gotten better. But they discharged me just basically out onto the streets. And I was a single mother at the time. And I said, well, what resources, where do I go? I can't go back to New Orleans, it's still underwater. And they said, well, go to the VA, because that's where veterans go. And I was like, sweet. Or so I thought. So I went to the VA.
A while ago.
Yeah. But, you know, not in the grand scheme of things, not really, because, you know, women have been legally serving since the 1940s. And so to be an afterthought in 2005, to me as a woman who was serving, was a huge slap in the face. And so I went to the VA, and they were looking at me like, okay, what do we do with you? I'm like, I'm a veteran, you give me services. And they're like, yeah, but you're a woman, last time I checked. But I said, well, we don't have any services for women. We only have services for male veterans. I said, well, you do realize that there are women that are serving over there in Iraq and Afghanistan that are fighting, bleeding, and dying for their country, right? And they said, oh, well, you mentioned you had an illegitimate child, right? So you should go to the welfare office and get on food stamps like other women in your situation. And that's basically what a lot of women in my situation were reduced to, because, you know, and America as a whole really hadn't caught up with the times. So I'm not just going to harp on the VA. We as a country could do better with serving, you know, men and women both equally. But, you know, women have unique needs, men have unique needs. But after that, I just basically spent the next few months you know, sleeping on my aunt's couch, you know, battling depression and, you know, not feeling very prideful about my service to my country.
Tell us about homelessness among women vets, because it's very high. And you started this amazing group called Final Salute to bring resources to those women. But what about the homelessness? Why are women vets ending up homeless?
Right now, women veterans are the fastest growing homeless population in the United States, to the tune of 55,000 nationwide. And it's due to the similar circumstances that I experienced, being a lack of supportive services. So the GAO did a report, the Government Accountability Office did a report in 2011, and up until that point, neither the VA or HUD even tracked women veteran as a homeless population. So that's why there were no programs for them. And over 60% of the grant per diem programs didn't take in women for children because there was no financial incentive to take care of the children. And so that left us sleeping in our cars, staying in domestic violence situations, and basically continue to get beaten because, well, at least my children are getting taken care of. Or we do what we call couch surfing, you know, basically going from house to house until your welcome is worn out. And so I started Final Salute in November of 2010. And since then, we have assisted over 900 women veterans and children in over 30 states and territories.
Oh, great. In our next segment, we focus on transitioning from military service to the civilian workforce when the Wounded Warrior Experience, presented by Military Order of the Purple Heart Service Foundation, continues.
The Wounded Warrior Experience, presented by Military Order of the Purple Heart Service Foundation, with additional support from GEICO. GEICO has proudly supported military members and their families for more than 75 years. We are proud and honored to support this year's Wounded Warrior Experience. And Saab. America's veterans have made great sacrifices to secure the freedom of our nation and its citizens. Saab Defense and Security USA is proud to honor their service.
This Veterans Day, Progressive is donating more than 130 vehicles to veterans in need. Saying thanks with a set of wheels? Now that's Progressive.
Welcome back to the Wounded Warrior Experience. For wounded warriors, the experience does not end with their return home and discharge from military hospitals. It continues on as they attend college, enter the workforce, and rejoin society. In this segment, we spotlight stories from veterans who can speak to the professional resources available to those who are transitioning to the private sector. Joining us for this third segment are Max Rohn, former Navy corpsman, wounded in Iraq in 2009, who has gone on to win multiple medals at the Warrior Games. Jorge de Leon, a native of Puerto Rico, wounded on his second deployment to Afghanistan in 2004. And Kenneth Preston, the 13th Sergeant Major of the Army, serving a total of 36 years prior to his retirement in 2011. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Max, let's start with you. You were a Navy corpsman. In 2009, you were in Iraq. What happened?
I was serving as a hospital corpsman attached to a PIT team, and that's a police transition team. Basically, what we do is we go in, train the Iraqi police. We use private contractors who are American cops, and they teach them how to do police investigations. On May 2nd, 2009, we were dropping off a couple of those contractors in HERRERA, and we're heading back to our police station, just like every day. And on the highway, a couple miles ahead, they found an IED. So we decided to reroute, and on our way back, the first vehicle got blocked off. I was sitting in the third vehicle, and then I got hit by an RKG-3 grenade on my door, and I was sitting front passenger side. The second vehicle, they dismounted, and they came over to render aid, and first person on scene was my little protege, and tried to put a tourniquet on. We snapped the first one, so then I got mad and I pushed him out of the way and put my own tourniquet on. And then we were holding them back enough so that the person behind me could hold the door shut as it was still hanging on. And we ended up getting around the blockade and ground medevac and all the way to TQ.
So in 2 years, you had 14 surgeries on your leg, and then something happened. You went out to the Warrior Games.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell people about your experience at the Warrior Games and what you decided to do after that.
So my first year out, I was still under limb salvage, and so I still had my leg as we were trying to rebuild it. It wasn't working very well, so I immediately went back, and that was kind of like the final straw, and getting the amputation on my leg. So that happened August 15, 2011, and then I made it to the Warrior Games that next year in May. And right before then, just started running about 6 weeks prior to that, and ran in a race, and I got 7th out of 8.
Good job. But then you went on to the U.S. Paralympic team, and you compete in track and field in the shot put.
Not so much the track part. I have been competing in field events now for 3 years, and made it to the nationals every year that I've started.
Wow. And you went to the Invictus Games in,
Yes, ma'am.
in London. Tell people what the Invictus Games are.
It was just an absolutely amazing experience because it was the first time that I've actually interacted with all of the NATO forces in an area after I've been out of country. So we had teams from the Netherlands, UK, all over the place. And we came together, and it was very, very easy to get along with these guys because that's what they did for their country. And they just didn't grow up in our country.
But the role of sports for wounded warriors, how would you put it?
For me, it was everything because it gave me a chance to focus. And that focus brought me to the Warrior Games where I finally got back the camaraderie that I didn't get in recovery.
Wonderful. Jorge, you joined the Army in 2001. You had 4 deployments. It was on your 2nd deployment in Afghanistan when you were injured. Tell me what happened.
Well, I was driving in the town of Ghazni. We were attached to the Special Forces looking for Osama bin Laden on the mountains. And coming back from the patrol, just 2 weeks from being there in that tour, I saw this burial in the middle of the desert where it was kind of weird. So I told my commander, I was driving the Humvee, and I told my commander, you know, let's check it out. He told me, let's go. Told them to roll up the windows, I'm sorry. And as soon as I got off the asphalt, I just saw a cloud of dust in my face and didn't remember hearing any loud bangs or nothing. I just know that something was wrong. And I was told, of course, that I drove over an IED.
What happened to your legs? And tell us what you're doing at Brook now.
Yeah. My right leg, I lost it above the knee. Right at the moment, it was just hanging from like a 1 inch of skin from my calf. And my leg left broke in half. My tibia exposed 2 inches. And actually, my fibula also broke, and my feet was backward. My toes were facing to the back and my heel to the front.
Ooh. And now you're testing prosthetics out at Brook?
Yeah.
That's your job?
Yeah, well, I work for the Coalition to South America's Heroes, and part of it is I go to Brook Army Medical Center and I visit the wounded troops and offer our help. And being an amputee, being so active in what I do, they pick me to test new legs when they come out, and that's what I'm doing. Like right now, just last week I got a new leg, and I'm just testing it for them. If it works, they sign for it. If not.
How have prosthetics changed in the last decade? And I'm sure it's incredible, but what are some of the changes?
It's incredible. Like for most people, what they see a prosthetic is just might be a tube or a pipe, right? Well, now they're even making computer legs. You can hook it up to the laptop with a specific program, and whatever activity you're gonna do, the leg, you program it to that, and it works.
And what do you hear from troops in terms of what they need in a prosthetic that isn't there yet?
The saying is a lot different because it's like Max was saying, you know, a lot of people like to do different things. So they like the mechanical ones. Most people like the computer ones. Now they're coming with, for example, the X3 is a third generation of the C-Leg, 11 years ago. So they have different things. So all you hear is the technology is amazing, and people are not stopping or getting prohibited from doing what they want because the technology is there and the legs are helping them.
And tell me about your group coalition to support America's heroes.
Salute America's Heroes.
Yes.
Yeah, we started in 2004, and we provide financial assistance for the wounded troops and their family when they're recovering from the hospital into the transition to the civilian life. Most people don't know, but it takes a long period of time for that first VA paycheck to get into your bank. So, we get a lot of calls about repossession, foreclosure, utilities. They're cutting off my light, my water supply, whatever. So the coalition's there to help them until they get back into their feet. And we also have other programs with homeless females, education, job. I mean, we're expanding a lot, and that's what we do.
Sergeant Major Preston, you were the 13th Sergeant Major of the Army. You served longer than any other Sergeant Major of the Army in the history of the U.S. Army, 7 years, from 2004 till you retired in 2011. In your job as Sergeant Major, what did you hear from the troops? It was your job to go around and talk to them. What were the needs that you saw and heard, and are we serving them, or what still needs to be done?
As I look at, not just the Army, but the Marine Corps and all of our military services that were there on the ground, at that time, we didn't have the up-armored vehicles, we didn't have the weapons that we needed, the body armor, we were still wearing, Vietnam-era flak vests. So it was a huge challenge early on, 2004. Just with getting the equipment out there to ensure that, all of our service members, soldiers that were deploying into harm's way, had the equipment that they needed. And of course, as the years went on, as we sat here and listened to the heroes here tonight, Walter Reed, just the challenges at Walter Reed dealing with outpatient care. It was only designed for about 120 outpatients. And of course, in the aftermath of Vietnam, the drawdown after Desert Shield, Desert Storm, all the rehabilitation hospitals and that medical infrastructure out there had gone away. And so we had to build all that back again to take care of our wounded warriors and to help them in that transition period.
And tell me about Veterans United Home Loans. You're working for them now that you've left the Army. What are you doing, and what do you see, what need are they filling?
I had the opportunity to go out to Columbia, Missouri, and visit with Veterans Home Loans, and I found an organization that was very much like a military organization. They hired a lot of veterans. There's a lot of veterans that work there that are part of the staff. They have a set of values that very much emulated our military services, and it just motivated me to be part of that organization, and to be able to now go out and educate and inform our service members, our veterans, and our retirees of what their VA benefits are, because a lot of them during the transition period, they receive the briefings, but it's really a lot of information overload. And one of the things that Veterans United Home Loan does is they educate and inform, and they really walk the veteran through that process of home ownership.
And what are you finding is surprising to the veterans you're talking to? What benefits do they have that they don't know they have?
Yeah, there's lots of benefits. I've seen, since with the wounded warriors in here tonight, that if you are just a veteran that leaves the military service, I mean, you've got health care for life, you got your Montgomery GI Bill, but if you're injured or you're wounded, that opens up a whole different category of VA benefits that you're eligible for. And if there's not somebody out there, in a lot of ways to help guide you through that process, you'll never know about some of the benefits that you would have.
And there's so many services out there. I think that's the message really from this program, is there are a lot of services out there. So thank you very much. When we return, our discussion concludes with a question and answer session with our audience. Please stay tuned to the Wounded Warrior Experience presented by Military Order of the Purple Heart Service Foundation.
The Wounded Warrior Experience is produced by the American Veterans Center, guarding their legacy, honoring their sacrifice. To learn more about the AVC, visit www.americanveteranscenter.org.
This Veterans Day, Progressive is donating more than 130 vehicles to veterans in need. Saying thanks with a set of wheels? Now that's progressive.
Welcome back to the Wounded Warrior Experience. As we close the discussion, we would like to open the floor to questions from the audience.
This question is for Ms. Booth. When you found out how dire your situation was and how intense it really was, what was your motivation to help you through those tough times?
Well, two things. Part of being a soldier is there's these core values you have, and you also go by the soldier creed. My favorite part of the soldier creed is the warrior ethos. So two things that carried me through my journey were, one, to never accept defeat, and two, to never leave a fallen comrade. So using those two things and the oath that I took 15 years ago is what I use to pull myself and my sisters through our tough times.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, please.
Thank you. And again, thank you all for great stories and great sharing. What does Veterans Day mean to you now, to the panel, now that you're home?
Well, I can tell you that it's not only a celebration from past veterans, what we're doing now, but it's a good opportunity also to let the people know that we have a job to do. This is not about politics. This is not about parties or nothing like that. This is our job. We volunteered to do it. And we will keep doing it, and our generations to come will do it anyways. And it's a good opportunity also to tell the people that since the beginning we saying we will never forget, this war is not over yet. The war on terror is not over yet. People relate the war on terror with only Afghanistan and Iraq, and they just have moved, they just have evolved, changed their ways, but the war on terror is still going on. So we still need their support and need to the new generations to be prepared to fight for that freedom and liberty that we enjoy in this country.
Another question?
So a lot of us are going to be commissioned soon. We're going to be, in that position, and we know the unfortunate reality is that we will see people wounded. So what is the best advice and support that you got, so one day we'll be in this position? What do we say to someone? How can we help them? Because it's easy to say, I'm sorry that happened, and kind of be silent. So what is the best support and advice that you got and that you would advise us to give later?
I would say resiliency. Don't stop. Some of us are very stubborn, and we're not going to listen to you. Keep knocking on the door. Keep asking the questions. Are you okay? Just keep on repetition.
That's great. And another thing that I would like to add is just, as you're going to commission soon, and you're going to have that position of leadership, the best thing I can tell you is prepare for it. Okay, most of the people, since this war started, they would join the Army just to go to college or to have a benefit. The primary job of the military is defending the country, is war. Okay, prepare for it. Prepare to see injured people, whatever injuries they are, and then from them and that experience, you will know what you could say after you do what following the advice that he gave you also.
This isn't necessarily specific to how to deal with the wounded or whatever, but the best advice I ever got as a coming up commissioning officer was compassion is the way that I derived my leadership style. If you truly invest yourself in your people and your family, you've heard every panelist say something about the community that we're a part of, the unit we were a part of, the family we were a part of. Your men and women will know if you're truly invested in them or not. It's not words you say. It's not an action you can do. It's really just truly investing yourself in your people and the people that you're interacting with. And if you can imbue that in your leadership style, I think that you're really going to be a great officer.
And with that, I'd like to thank our panel, I'd like to thank our audience, and on behalf of the American Veterans Center, thank you for being with us for this year's discussion on the Wounded Warrior Experience. A special thank you goes to our presenting sponsor, Military Order of the Purple Heart Service Foundation, with support from the Coalition to Salute America's Heroes, Veterans United Home Loans, Northrop Grumman, Saab Defense and Security, American Airlines, Aon, Geico Military, and Amtrak. And finally, thank you to the staff of the United States Navy Memorial for being such gracious hosts for the program. And to all of our servicemen and women of every generation, thank you for your service.